Let's see.
Okay, got it.
Wonderful. Okay. So I'm excited, amigas. Hello, hello, hello. And welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. I have such a beautiful soul here. And how fortunate are we to talk about self-help, therapy, mental wellness, to set us up for this year, because there's so much going on this planet.
Yes.
And we can get really chaotic in our brains, in our hearts, in our souls. And so I'm excited to have here Gilza Martinez, who has been a therapist now for over 30 years. So amigas, she has done a lot. She's seen every kind of relationship known to this planet, and so that's why she needs to be here to talk to us and give us the 411, how we can break away from these cultural limitations and baggage that we have. So thank you so much, Gilza, for being here on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I really appreciate this. When I can get an opportunity to have conversations, particularly with younger Latina women, to really, step into their own, I'm happy to do it.
Music to my ears. So Gilza, you're from Miami, but I know that you're Latina. So let's talk about that. Like, you were born in Miami. What's your familial relationship? Just so we can get perspective.
Actually, I was born in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba, but I came over to the States very young, under a year old. My parents were part of the Cuban Revolution and the political refugees. To this day, my mother is still alive at 91 and kicking. Absolutely kicking.
Yes, I love that.
Absolutely kicking. And she, they still consider themselves political refugees. So I grew up very much within the concept of we came to the States. It wasn't our choice, but we're going to be grateful. We're going to be appreciative. We're going to do, we're going to kind of grow and learn here. But remember your heritage, because this wasn't our choice to be here, kind of thing. And that was a big foundation thing for me, about really being able to be work hard and then play hard, and work hard and then celebrate your wins, and that kind of thing.
Oh yes, absolutely. So here's the thing: it wasn't your choice to come to this country, but then there was a decision and a choice for you for your future. So tell us about that, please.
Well, I mean, for my parents, they were very much about education. So for my parents, it was every little piece of paper that you could get to put on the wall was very important to them. Okay. Yeah. And that really meant that, we were really being, again, appreciative, grateful for the opportunities to be here. So for me, that piece was always exciting, learning and wanting to do. Now, my father was an attorney, and so Jacqueline, like, a good Hispanic child, a good Latina child, you're supposed to do what they have as expectations for you, right? So I was supposed to be an attorney. And I promise you, Jacqueline, I really tried to be an attorney.
I don't blame you.
My father wanted that for sure. And I really tried, but really what called me always was, my father was a big believer in the law and in the due process and all of those kinds of things that threw them, forced them to kind of leave Cuba, was that whole concept of not having those kind of freedoms. So my father was very much about helping people that way. And I was really drawn to helping people at a more of an emotional and at a soul level versus the law. Yes. And so, he resisted me for a while, but eventually did understand that we were both really kind of trying to do the same thing from different perspectives. Yeah, right. So
yeah, no, I could completely understand that, because the law is very linear. Right. It's like there's no heart and soul, if you will. You kind of have to forget that, which is something which is what has, I mean, along the way, I pivoted my entire career, which I realized like, wow, my soul and my heart is craving something else. It's not, I cannot stand in this masculine energy anymore. This is not me. This might have been me 20 years ago when I started, but not anymore. And so just coming to know that about yourself is fantastic, because ordinarily most, Latinas would be like, okay, Dad, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Right. But you followed your path, which is incredible. And
which was tough, like you said. It's part of the things of how we do this. That's why, like I said, I really love talking to younger women such as yourself that are really, trying to sort some of these things out, and to just kind of say, hey, it can happen. You can find your path and then follow it, and pick yourself up and dust yourself off, and run into the uncertainty, and instead of running from it, let's embrace the uncertainty and kind of.
I know, and uncertainty is where you have more growth in life, right? And I have found, for me, it's like, oh my God, when this whole and for me, the shift, I mean, I was going nuts. So, but I realized, you know what, what's going to make me happy? I gotta take care of Jackie, because if I don't take care of Jackie, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. So I'm excited for you to tell us, okay, so you went into the world of therapy, and obviously through that world of therapy, you've been learning all the signals of what empowers women, what disempowers them. What's your advice for a woman who, is at that crossroads like me, or young, where they're like, I don't know where where do I go? Right.
Right. And I think that's a good point, because we could be at that crossroads at any point in our chronological life anyway, right? I mean, it's pretty common for us to not know what the heck we want to do when we are in our 20s. And if we're pursuing a more formal education, to try to figure out, well, what's my major going to be? That's not uncommon. But then, we hit 30, we can hit 40, we can even hit 50, and really say, well, this is not calling me anymore, as you were saying. I forgot that you were an attorney by training, so you definitely get what I was saying to you about my dad. Yeah. I have to tell you that first and foremost, what I talk about with both my friends, but clients, is two things for us as women in general, but definitely as Latina women. Okay, we got to learn how to say no, Jackie. That 2-letter word for us as Latinas is like a complete taboo. Yes. It's just not allowed. In some families, it's overtly not allowed. In other families, right, it's more subtle, it's more covert, where, but the expectation is, but well, what do you mean you're not going to do that? You always do that, whatever that is, right? So I start with women, talking to them about, what are your values? What's important to you? Hopefully, if it's a woman that's older, you can say, well, what are your values now versus what were your values when you were 20? And I hope that they've been some shift, right? Right. So that from that place of self, right, from that place of the capital S, that you can start to then, set some of these paths. The saying no is crucial. The second point that I say to them is I really try to help them make the distinction between what is selfish and what is for the self, right? Because for a lot of us, right, as women, that resonates for you, I see, right?
Oh my God. Right. Mira, no es por nada, pero sí. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think everyone out there listening to this podcast can completely understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson that I learned more, oftentimes personally versus professionally, but definitely, as you said, as Latina women, we're taught, it doesn't matter that it's the 21st century, versus, the 19th century, we're taught as women to be más madre que mujer, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
To be, the backbone of the family. And so while those are absolutely important values, absolutely, crucial, foundational things, one of the benefits of living in the US is that doesn't have to be my only perspective. I can do some of that and do. So I really talk to them about, tell me what it means to you to be selfish. Okay, and so they'll start, right? What do we usually say? Oh, selfish just means, that's bad. That's bad to be selfish. And I said, well, what if you capitalize it for me? Can you put the capital S in selfish? No, Gilza, es lo mismo. It's the same. It doesn't, it's not a good thing. And so it's a whole conversation, sometimes many conversations with women, particularly where they are in that process, right? Because, millennials might be able to say, well, yeah, self is about me. But women of my age, women who are recent immigrants, for example, that come then, right, from more traditional countries and so forth, that it's a bad concept. So the idea of really learning to step into, right, to really intentionally step into, it's absolutely crucial that we figure out what the self with a capital S is and how to celebrate it and figure out its passions and really help them understand that when you do that, everything else falls into place.
Yes,
right?
Yes, I love this.
But that's scary, Jackie, right?
Yeah.
That's scary because that means I have to go up against mommy or papi and say, listen, no puedo, I can't do that. I got to go out of town for business. Or, mami, no puedo hoy con las niñas. I really need to have a coffee with my girlfriend. Y bueno, y las niñas, ¿y qué van a comer? ¿Y qué van a hacer?
Yeah. Y pues tú eres la mamá, tú tienes que hacerlo.
Tú tienes que hacerlo. Yeah. I remember those conversations with my mother and with my mother-in-law even more about papá puede hacerle un sandwich, el papá puede, pick up food, he could do. So those kinds of boundaries, and it goes back to, the first one, but really being able to carve out who we are within our families, within our passions, within all of that. And then, Jackie, create a tribe, right? Create a tribe of people that are going to support you in that. Because our families may want to. I mean, my father tried to support me in being a psychotherapist and things. But if they don't really have those skills, then what's your tribe? Who are the people that are going to say, yeah, it's okay, they can have a sandwich. They're not, nadie se está muriendo aquí de mala nutrición or anything like that. Right?
Especially here in America. I mean, come on,
exactly.
There's wasted food to be quite frank, right?
I bring up the food because that's always been, a very Latino kind of thing, right? And for my mother-in-law, food was love. And if you didn't cook, that meant you weren't doing, your job.
Yeah, your job as a mother, as a wife. Like, who's going to cook for your husband? I'm like, okay, and those days, I'm like, those days are over.
Right. Okay.
I live
no
here.
Quiere cocinar él, delivery, pickup, all of that works.
Yeah, Postmates.
That was really, and that is still very hard. Miami is could be a very insular community, as large as it is. And as, kind of the gateway to the Americas or so, it could still be a very insular community. And those two things, the ability to say no and the ability to really honor the self with the capital S, I find that is, still, even in the 21st century, even as long as I've been practicing, Jackie, is still a real challenge for a lot of women, for a lot of Latina women.
Yeah, no, I see that too.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it's like, it's one of those things, like, we are people pleasers by nature, right?
Right.
And to get away from that
Mhm.
is going to take some, risk. For some women, it's going to take a lot of risk.
A lot of risk. Right.
And to say, no, I don't want to go to that party.
Right.
Where
Mhm.
your familia is all critical, and like, they just, I mean, because
Right.
that does happen, in a
Absolutely.
lot of families. So
Absolutely.
it's finding that self,
Mhm.
I always say, and I learned this from Abraham Hicks, is that be selfish so that you can be able to pour over onto others.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
The other things that fall into place, as we were talking about, is that if you feel full, if you feel some life satisfaction, if you feel energized, then you have something to offer. I was always a much better mother when I went to work, or when I had that cup of coffee with my girlfriend. I would come home happy to see them. I mean, my girls are grown women themselves now at this point, but when they were little,
Yeah.
for my mother-in-law, it was very hard for her to understand que yo voy a ir a tomarme esta taza de café. I'll be back in 2 hours. And so she's babysitting so that I could go out to have a cup of coffee. Oof, that was really tough for her.
Yeah, that's probably like a no-no for a lot of amigas out there, because
A lot.
yeah, I completely understand that.
Right.
I mean, I to this day, I still get the las miradas.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
what do you mean you're gonna leave? What do you mean
Mhm.
you're gonna leave your kid with your husband? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
because I need to.
Uh-huh. Right.
I have.
And my husband, her father is perfectly capable.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
I know. Oh my God, I love this. So, okay, so let's say, okay, so now this is part of the whole, like, this is the baggage that as Latinos we carry, and
Mhm.
so identifying these signals, I'd love to, how can we, I mean, I know that the first thing is for us to, like, okay, realize, like, say no. That would probably be the first thing, say no. So now that I said no, what's next?
Right. What do you do with that?
What do
Okay,
you do with
because
that?
the beauty of saying no also is, because we make it sound real easy, right? But you and I both know, Jackie, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that your audience knows, saying no is not easy. And in some of our families, it's not easy. You didn't tell my father no,
Right.
okay? Only my mother could tell him no. The rest of us really could not tell him no. So it's a little word, very powerful and very scary, right? So what do you do with that? I mean, I really like to encourage people in general that when they're going to begin this process, this journey of, really identifying what's important to you and really wanting to start to honor your person, because it's going to be what's going to help others, that you kind of have this practiced a little bit. Like, let's just not go in there in the middle of an argument and say, well, no, and no to you, and no to you, and I'm not doing anything that anybody wants.
Right.
That's not usually sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So boundaries are best set quietly and firmly. Okay. Lovingly, even if you can get there, depending on the dynamics. Quietly, lovingly, and firmly. I'd really love to go to that event. I'm going to put it on my calendar for next year. Okay. Can't make it this year. Okay. So that there are ways that you practice, though, because most of us don't have this language, right, Jackie? I mean, most of us don't have this language,
No.
And so we want to be able to practice what are going to be the boundaries that you want to set. And I obviously also, let's not start with trying to do everything at once. If you got a family that's very intense, or you're very involved with your family, your extended family, again, I wouldn't start off saying no, 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 but rather pick one or two things. In my case with my mother-in-law, again, was a cook. That's what she did. I'm sure that you can guess that cooking is not my thing and that is not my forte. I can cook, but I don't have that connection to cooking being this wonderful way for me to connect. I connect with my kids or my friends or family in different ways. So really being able to step away from, okay, you can cook. I appreciate that you cook, and I'm going to do this while you're cooking. Now that takes practice.
Yeah.
A little bit of a sense of self, like you said, because when it comes back at you, if you can't sustain that, if you can't enforce it, then, te coge la baja, as we say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 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 It all falters. I mean,
It
you got it. Yeah. We definitely need to learn how to practice the art of boundaries.
Yeah. The
Which
art
is,
of boundaries. Love that.
which is something that it can be very challenging. Definitely doable, but I think, as you were saying, it's like, okay, let's do baby steps, if you will, like setting the boundary of like, okay, I'm not gonna help out with making food, but I'm going to be doing this other thing, but doing it in a loving and caring, compassionate way to, get your point across that this is not something that you want to do. And I love that you're saying this, because amigas out there who are listening to the podcast, we need to realize that here and come to self and say, like, in the year 2022, I'm going to start setting my boundaries.
And start small, right?
Small. Yeah. Baby steps, because it's not, like you said, you can't be saying, no.
Right. Okay.
Right away.
Exactly. And they won't believe you then, it's going to be harder to enforce than if you say, well, every Saturday, 1 to 2, that's my time. I'm going to go off and do something. And you have to work through your own, right? What do we have? Mom guilt and, the extended family. And for some women, well, what do I do with myself for an hour? I don't even know.
Right. Figuring, and especially, I think the older you are, if you're learning this practice older in your life, and you didn't put friendships in your equation, in your community, I bet it could be even more challenging to say no.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Amigas out there, start setting your boundaries. Don't be alone when you get older, because Lord knows we need the community. Right. We need a community of this like-minded individuals.
Right.
Because there's toxicity in family relationships and in other friendships. And so it is our opportunity to start like, okay, wait a minute, do I really want this person to be a part of my community? Again, it's a boundary. So maybe, we start looking at our inner circle.
Maybe you start there, right? Maybe you start in an outer relationship versus, the family one. That's a good point.
Yeah. Because there's boundaries that you can make and create to make your happy place and be more self, right? More of self. So, I love this conversation. So now, for those amigas out there that all they do is like say yes, people pleasing, that they don't understand this whole boundary, like, do you see what happens? Like, I'm sure there's burnt out when that happens, like completely. So what can we do to help those amigas who are experiencing burnt out?
And you've probably seen it and heard it from your your friends, your family, your audience, particularly these last 2 years, you know, with the whole pandemic thing, we've seen how that type of enclosure, while some of us really come from extended families that really like to do everything together and all of that, you've seen that that type of I call it an enclosure. It's not always isolation. Sometimes it could be insulation, right? Where that's like a warm and fuzzy feeling, but that really the idea of being able to just break out a little bit of time for yourself. You know, when I talk to women, Jackie, that really don't have any idea where to start with this, like you said. And it's very scary because they are going to have to go up against some pretty formidable people in their lives, in their circles, right? I tell them to start with really something small, you know, if they have, let's say, little children. So when they have babies and the baby is napping, I say to them, okay, let's not do laundry, dishes, cook a meal. When the baby's napping, let's take those 30 minutes. Maybe we get lucky and it's an hour, right? And that's your time. And then I have a whole conversation with them about, well, what would you do with that time, right? Because the baby's sleeping, we can't go anywhere. Okay, what can you do to just begin that whole idea of nurturing yourself, right? We nurture our babies, we nurture our families. What, you know, so I ask them, depending on who they are, what rocks your world or what makes your heart sing, you know, some kind of question that really is about them kind of going inside. Okay. And if their children are older, then I might use, okay, so when they're in school, where is there an hour in the 8 to 3 that's usual school time that you could do something for yourself? I don't care what it is. You know, you flip through a magazine, you walk around the block. I don't care, right? Because as the point that I hit hard with them on is that when your kids get older, middle school to high school, they don't want to be with you. Just like we didn't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So when they don't want to be with you, then you're going to look around and you're going to say, bueno, ¿y ahora qué?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So I encourage them, hey, let's plan ahead for the day when your kid says to you, ay, mommy, please, déjame. So we're not devastated.
Right. Yeah, and then like for the empty nesters as well, like you put everything and now you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do with your spouse. You don't know what to do with yourself.
Right. Now, you know, I always use the example of moms because a lot of times many of my clients are moms or are new moms or older moms like that. But, you know, the conversation is the same whether you have children or not. You know, if you are a Latina woman that is used to taking on, overextending themselves, right? Everything, you know, yo soy la que resuelvo. That's how we say kind of in Cuban Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Yo soy la que resuelvo. And you look around though, and you don't really have anything that really provides satisfaction, that really provides a sense of contentment. And so oftentimes these women come into my office, Jackie, and what they're saying is, I just want to be happy. Pero no saben por dónde empezar.
Yeah, no saben qué es lo que los hacen feliz.
No.
Yeah.
Porque yo resuelvo. I just take care of things. What do you need, Jackie? You need a plant? You need a cup of coffee? You need that? Yo te voy a resolver. But then you ask me, well, what do you want? Yeah. And no saben.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, so and it's a starting from, again, that capital S. Yeah,
because I think oftentimes, unfortunately, there's this stigma of seeking out therapy because estás loco, estás loca.
Right.
And here you are, no, I just want to take care of myself.
Right.
So let's like break the damn stigma. Like we hire people for all kinds of areas that we're not experts in. Right.
Exactly. We use a GPS, Jackie, for God's sakes. We use a GPS to take us from one place to the other. And that's okay. We can get guidance from some kind of robotic person on an electronic device. But you want to allow yourself to, hey, you know what? I'm really feeling off and I want to figure that out. So that's why I love talking with you. I love your podcast. I love that you say, that about how to do their shit, because that's real.
Yeah.
That's the real stuff, right? That how are we going to handle our own shit on a daily basis so that at some point we feel like we can walk through that stuff and we don't drown in it.
Yeah, because we can drown. And that's what, it's my impression that that's what leads to depression, to anxiety, to all these crazy thoughts that we can't get to. I know as someone who's now in menopause, and there was a point where I was like, why am I having these thoughts? So I came to self and I'm like, wait a minute, I may have some hormone irregularity. Whatever. They're not regular.
Not regular, right?
They're not regular. But like the only way I could have come to that is because I know myself. I've sought out therapy. I've sought out resources to help me come to that conclusion.
Right.
And that's the thing that we as Latinas need to understand, that we first have to take care of self.
Right. And that is okay, that's a crucial piece to being available then for others, whether it's friends, family, your children. If that is your essence of your value system, that you want to be able to be helpful to others, then be compassionate with yourself, Jackie. So that you have like you create a reservoir of stuff to be able to offer. So when you ask me about the burnout, that's where I start. Can you come to the place where you say, okay, if I take an hour for myself, that's a good thing. And then can we do something with that hour? I don't care what it is, but that you can discuss it with me, you can express it. And then will you celebrate it? Will you celebrate the hour that, Gilza, I only took an hour this week, but it was so good.
Yes, we need to celebrate, because no one else will do it unless you do it yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh goodness, this is for me a whole therapy session. I love this. So I know that we're coming to the end of our segment here, but I always ask my amigas for 1 or 2 tips on how an amiga can handle her shit. So if you can, provide some, if you have.
Well, I'm going to go back to this idea of, doing for yourself. So I call them play dates, Jackie.
Ooh.
Okay, so give yourself a play date a week. Maybe you start off with something that is very, conventional. Oh, I'm going to go to the mall. But maybe then you start to get creative and allowing yourself to really listen to your, that little voice inside. It's in there because, if you look at a kid knows, because their fantasy playing, their imagination is working. We just kind of suppress that, but it's in there. We have to dig around. So I would tell you, do a little play date with yourself once a week. It's not quantity of time. It's more the carving of that time, the permission for yourself, and then see what happens. See what happens on those play dates. See how you do. Take some notes for yourself. Bounce it around. If you're not ready to do therapy or coaching, who's your friend? Who's the person that fills you in your life? Go bounce that off them. Ask them, what do you think? What do you think about this? And before you know it, you got a little bit of a snowball thing going on.
Ooh, I like that. Give yourself a play date. I think I'm going to go get my nails done.
There you go. There you go. It doesn't matter what it is. It's whatever resonates for you that says,
yes, Yes, right, exactly. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, amiga. This is amazing because these are words that amigas can hear and gravitate towards. You know, let's be all about ourselves. You know, it's stop being selfless and because it's not selfish. You know, so just, you know, reframing the words we tell ourselves.
Absolutely.
You know, it's super important for us to do that. And I am excited for this episode. I know a lot of amigas are going to resonate. So I'm super grateful to have you here. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Okay. And I hope that you have a wonderful manicure and that maybe you'll splurge and do a little petty also in there.
Yes, I love that. Definitely, 1000%. I'm gonna go on my play date.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Gilza.
You're welcome. Enjoy, and I look forward to talking to you or listening to more of your podcasts.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.